So why don't we check in with Austin Burlage as we do each and every week, except for last week, because Austin is a new dad, and there are priorities. Even though most of us would not believe it, there are priorities outside of football. And so congratulations to you and your family, Austin. That's all. That's fantastic.
I appreciate that, Buck. Yeah, I thought she came. My daughter was born at like 9:30 in the morning on Saturday, and then we got to watch a 56-point blowout win, and then Tennessee got off to a hot starting in Florida, and I thought I cracked the code. I thought, this is it. She's our good luck charm, and the curse of Florida has been lifted. That turned out not to be true, but still, my daughter is a darling, and I love her very much. So thank you.
Well, absolutely, we're incredibly happy for you. Now, it's funny that you bring up good luck charms and children, because I went to the Titans Seahawks game, obviously, to cover that a week and a half or a week ago, and there was a gentleman who had I don't know, it wasn't a newborn, probably like 8 months old, and they took the little guy to the game, and they said every game that we've been to, every road game that we've been to prior to him being born, the Titans have lost. So now he has to come to every road game in the future because he's clearly good luck. And I'm looking at this little child who has no idea what's going on. And it's 70,000 people in Seattle screaming. And I'm like, you're taking your children to this thing? But whatever.
Loudest stadium in the country, right? I mean, but hey, that's the rule now. You just got to be there. Hey, can we take a quick detour, speaking of Titans, and just how good did you look in that suit yesterday, man?
Buddy, I looked great.
What was that, Buck Burgundy out there? I mean, that was phenomenal.
That's exactly what that is. So listen, we're living well nowadays, and I just started getting suits made for me, and there was some fun had at my expense, because it did look a little bit like I was trying to model my game off like the Joker. But I look damn good in purple.
Oh, for Rex Road, it was the what's the McDonald's character, the big
Grimace.
purple thing? Yeah, Grimace.
Yeah. So, well, I thought that was just him trying to be cute with a fat joke. But listen, it took me 20 minutes to help Rex Road set up that joke, because he has been going through 2 decades now as a sports media person. I understand Twitter hadn't been around for 2 decades, but this idiot doesn't know how to copy and paste pictures off of the internet, save them to his phone, and post them on Twitter. It was fascinating to me to watch him be an 85-year-old man. Anyway.
You did not have to do it to him, Buck, but you did, and we appreciate you for it.
You're damn right. Game days are game days for everybody, not just the players on the field. All right, let's talk about the Vols. Because the first half, you're right, they got up, they got the lead. It was impressive the way that they were doing it. Hendon Hooker was operating with efficiency. I thought it was brave of Cooper Mays to kind of gut it out the way that he did, but glad that they kind of, that they got him out of there basically in preparation for Missouri, which is going to be a critical game for this team in the SEC. How were they able? Let's start with the first half. What did you see them doing that allowed them to generate that lead?
Yeah, so 2 things that I saw that I really liked. So one thing that Tennessee, obviously in Heupel, going back to his time at UCF, has been known for is obviously the pace. We've seen the graphics on Twitter, fastest offense in college football. And even Heupel said in some press conferences, right, like, we can go faster. And even some players have said, we think we can be faster. So it's all been predicated on how fast can we get plays off. And their pace was what we have come to expect. But what I really liked is on a couple third downs, they actually slowed it down, used the whole clock, and that's what happened on the Tyon Evans screen pass for the touchdown. That was a 3rd and 8, I believe, from plus territory. I want to say about the 44-yard line, and they got to the line quickly like they usually do, but then actually took some time, saw what Florida was trying to do, signaled in a play, got what they wanted. Now, Evans did make a guy miss. Maybe it could have been blocked a little bit better, but I really liked that. And they did it a couple times. Unfortunately, backfired in the second half when we had 4th and 2 and used too much time and had a delay of game and then punted. That's a separate conversation. But I really like that in the first half. Not everything has to be at a million miles per hour. Get in the play that you like and go from there. Number 2, I really liked Florida. Most teams will end up playing a lot of man coverage based on the split of Tennessee's wide receivers when they go spread. So Tennessee did a lot of man coverage beating concepts, and I think we saw that particularly in the first half. If we're talking first half, like the Javonte Payton touchdown, that was purely man, and the defensive back got his eyes in the backfield because it was a stacked formation. So he thought, based on how the receivers came out, it's going to be a run. Got his eyes in the backfield, just ran right by him, freed him up for a touchdown. Saw another couple things, like we used Jalen Hyatt in motion. It's harder to play man when you have a lot of motion running around. You can't run across the field with them. So those were two areas where I really felt like Tennessee in the first half had a good amount of success.
Yeah, no, and it was clear and obvious to everybody. Now, I don't know how close attention you pay. I know you're studying the tape, but I don't know how close attention you pay, Austin, to the post-game press conferences, because I was laughing. In fact, Lucas, can we play that Dan Mullen sound for Austin Burlage? Have you heard this of him complimenting Tennessee?
Yeah, is this where he kind of pats us on the head a little bit?
Yeah, can we play that for the audience? Austin has clearly heard it, but I would like for Vols fans to experience what appeared to be pity that Dan Mullen was kind of patting his opponent on the head.
Had to go play an excellent Tennessee team. I think you look at them, the physical group, physical on both sides of the ball. Some good athletes. Their quarterback, I thought, played really well today, hitting some shots, creating big plays. They're an explosive type of offense, and you can see that they the improvements they've made in 1 year, and what Coach Heupel's doing with them, and how those guys play. And our guys had to come out and play hard for 4 quarters. And, in the first half, I thought a couple mistakes here and there, and we went in and challenged the guys at halftime.
So that's Dan Mullen going on and on after being hugely complimentary. That doesn't make anybody feel any better. Although I saw people touting it as some kind of moral victory Saturday on Twitter.
Yeah, I was actually disappointed, and I don't want to be the negative guy. I mean, I think there are areas where you can look at Tennessee and be optimistic about some things that they did, but it's hard for me to feel like Tennessee is really that much more improved. I mean, we lost by 12, I think, last year to the Florida Gators, and they were ranked 13th. So this year we lost by 24. I think Pruitt's first year we lost to Florida by 26. I mean, so the gap to me, I mean, at least on the scoreboard where it counts, is just as wide as it has been the last few years, and probably going back to that 2016 upset at home. And along with that, I mean, credit to Tennessee for making plays, but like we just talked about, I mean, one of their touchdowns was a coverage bust. And so, and we didn't score at all in the second half. So again, some positives to take away from it, but at the same time, I was I didn't like the quote personally, but that's just me.
Austin Burlage of Power T Tape is here with us, as he is every Monday, except on the Mondays after he has a child. Talking about the Vols and the Gators. At Austin_Burlage is where you can follow him.
Austin, you mentioned seeing a lot of single-man coverage when the Vols are spread out, like on that Javonte Payton touchdown against Florida. Obviously, there's been a lot of those open looks. Josh Heupel's gotten credit for scheming up those open looks, all the overthrows over the first 3 weeks. Have the majority of those, in your mind, just come from straight-up Tennessee receivers just beating guys in single-man coverage?
Yeah, I think so. That's a good question. So I think Heupel does some things to get those guys open, like a lot of rub routes. So that's one thing that we saw with, the Jimmy Callaway drop, right, was a play called mesh where Cedric Tillman kind of came and picked a guy off. So he got a guy open by the way the routes are run against the man coverage. So I don't know if it's a case. To me, it's not so much a case of Tennessee wide receivers like beating guys one-on-one per se, but I think the scheme works like their man-beating concepts. I mentioned earlier, like getting Jalen Hyatt moving. I think we've seen Hyatt not be too effective down the field, which has maybe been a disappointment this year, but found a way to get him the ball in space against Florida, which was nice to see. So I think from that standpoint, it's been a lot of scheme on Heupel's end of like, hey, I've got my menu of these are my man-beating concepts, and I think he did a good job calling those, and that, not to pick on Callaway, obviously that drop was big, but then there was another fourth down where it was a man-beating concept with a rub route, and we hit Peyton he made a great catch on fourth, and I want to say 5. So yeah, I don't know if Tennessee is just like torching D-backs or like running away from guys to get open, but I think Heupel's done a good job in that respect.
Well, and as he mentioned last week, it doesn't make him feel any better because the plays aren't being executed at the rate that he would like for them to be executed. So I don't think anybody would. And you brought up the Jimmy Callaway drop on fourth down, where there's just nothing but grass in front of him. I mean, he's got it. He's got it if he makes that catch, and it becomes I don't know how much different of a game it becomes, but it certainly makes Vols fans feel better about the result as we sit here the Monday afterwards. But this upcoming game against Missouri, Austin, it's an SEC East game. It's a beatable opponent. It's an opportunity for them to really get some solid footing under them. Is this the most important game of their season when you look at the season at large?
Yeah, in my opinion, I would say so. I think you kind of always looked at Florida as being probably a game you weren't going to win. And you're looking at the schedule going, and trying to define, like I think we did on the show, right? Like what would be a successful year?
Right.
I think if you look at like Missouri, South Carolina, and Kentucky as winnable games, in addition to, the Bowling Green win, Vanderbilt, and South Alabama, even though they're 3-0, and have Jake Bentley, who has beaten the Vols before. Then you start to look at it. Okay, for first year, maybe you have some optimism about what you can get to. But yeah, if you drop one of these games to Kentucky, Missouri, or South Carolina, then it starts to get really depressing in terms of what the record might end up being. And it's not completely, you don't want to make excuses, but at the same time, like you'd like to have your full complement, your full roster for a game like this. And I know Heupel was at his press conference not too long ago, said he didn't really know the status on Hendon Hooker. I think everybody is kind of not too optimistic about what Joe Milton can do, especially with the way the game ended against Florida. Obviously, Cooper Mays, warrior, dog, but is he going to be okay?
Yeah, but also ankle. Yeah, warrior dog ankle.
Yeah, ankle. Maybe the other ankle. You never know.
Not great.
But yeah, so definitely a game that you really would like to have if you're Heupel, but at the same time, like, can you do it with the roster that you've got?
Also, I want to ask you about a late situation in the first half that could apply down the stretch in some of these close games. When Tennessee gets the ball driving down the field, late in the first half with a couple of timeouts and not a lot of time when they forced the fumble and went down to try to kick the field goal. I know a lot of people were frustrated because you felt like there was an opportunity to call a timeout, maybe give yourself one or two extra plays. But I wonder, in your opinion, does calling a timeout there and trying to stretch out that drive time-wise almost come to the detriment of this offense that in that moment, after forcing a turnover, wants to move quick and fly down the field and find some points out the gate? Do you think calling the timeout and slowing things down may actually hurt them there? Maybe that's why he didn't choose to stop the clock?
Yeah, potentially. I don't have too big of an issue with the end of the first half and how it played out. I mean, we got an opportunity for a field goal. I think what is overlooked on that drive is we had two false start penalties back-to-back that we actually overcame to even get into that position. So that speaks to the larger issue of penalties, which were an issue against Pitt, again, an issue last night, and like pre-snap penalties. So just a lack of focus and discipline. So I was concerned about that, and I was fine with not taking the timeout up until I think we had like 15 seconds left with two timeouts, and I felt like, okay, you're probably playing for the field goal. We could have taken a timeout, run a play, and we had been running the ball pretty well at that point because Cooper wasn't injured yet, and I felt like and Evans and Small had been running well. I felt like we could have used a timeout and run a play to get a little bit closer for that field goal and not. I think it was like 47 yards, something like that. I felt like we could have used the timeout to get a little bit closer. I think that's asking a lot of your kicker to try to hit an almost 50-yarder as the clock's expiring on the road when you had an opportunity to get him a little bit closer. So that was the issue that I had on that drive. But I felt like, the pace that we ran at and it didn't allow Florida to sub. I mean, I think we liked our matchups and we had open guys and Hendon Hooker hit a couple of them. So I think it played out pretty well up until the end.